Welcome everyone to the first episode of the Chopin Preludes, and what better prelude to start with than the first one in C major. As usual, we'll be talking about the piece itself, how to practice it, and finally, how to learn it. But before we do that, I want to talk about just one thing as a quick prelude. I don't want to talk about what preludes are. We'll do that some other time because that's also an interesting topic. But very briefly, I want to mention why I'm even doing this, almost like a comparison between the Bach preludes from the Well-Tempered Clavier and the Chopin preludes. And I do think they are very similar, and also all of these preludes much more in tune with more modern tastes, which I think I might have mentioned before. It's not just that they're like shorter and to the point, but every single one of them has, like, I'm going to say, an interesting shtick, especially for Chopin. I mean, this one in E minor, which is just a bunch of chords. That's kind of the shtick. The one in F sharp major, whose shtick is, instead of playing a normal chord, we go around the notes. Or the first one by Bach, which is just this rhythmic shtick. I feel bad saying shtick for Bach. It just permeates the whole piece. Or this other one by Bach, where that rhythmic pattern of do-do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do, that permeates the whole piece. So every prelude has something that's very catchy and unique to it. And the piece just kind of stays there. It doesn't really evolve in different rhythms or different shticks. It's very to the point. And I think that it just, I don't know, it's easier, it's more bite-sized, easier to kind of like wrap your aesthetic taste around, to use a funky phrase. So, what's the shtick of this piece? Well, there isn't much of a shtick. I play the beginning. The piece is just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again through a bunch of different keys. Now, so let's go a bit deeper into what it does, what this shtick is. But I'm going to try to not fall into a trap that I strongly dislike in some of the few academic papers I've read about classical music, mostly Bach and some Chopin, where people tend to, in my experience, I've often seen people just describe the sheet music in words, which I don't see the point of. You have the sheet music in front of you. I mean, you can tell this is in 2/8. It's got triplets. It's A form, all that jazz. I don't see the point. I mean, the sheet music is already a very imperfect representation of music. I mean, if you were to philosophize, I would say even recordings are also kind of imperfect representations of music, since they lack the social context. Like, think about it. A recording of a piece is different whether you listen to it in a car with your friends, on the bus with headphones, at home on vinyl, or going to see it live, or the way it was recorded in the studio. Anyways, I digress. So let's not just talk about what the sheet music shows us. Let's talk about the piece a little more the way a listener would hear it. So what is this piece? I'm going to say in a grand romantic tradition, but I'm probably wrong about that. It's basically chords and a melody. Melody is a little much because it's if you can call this a melody. But let's say it's a melody. So it's basically chords with a melody. But Chopin shows us these chords and this melody in a very interesting way, very interesting. So the first thing he does is the chords are not these basic, they're called, I think think they're called basic triads. In any case, the chords that he uses to ground this piece sound like this. Do you see how they're like wider? I could rearrange these notes and make it like this. But by rearranging them and just stretching them out so they're occupying like more space, suddenly they sound more interesting, especially on the piano. I'm reminded that Adam Neely talked about this, how one of his favorite sounds on the bass was playing these basic triads in this format. So instead of a triad like this, take this note, the third, put it up here. It is just such a sweet tone, especially on modern pianos, especially with the pedal, and especially here in this register of the piano. It's so gorgeous, especially this third over here. The way it sounds together with this bass note, it's absolutely gorgeous. Another version of this would be like, in Liszt. This is the same sort of chord. So this way of voicing the chords, of playing them, is throughout the entire piece. It's part of the shtick, if you will. If you look at the sheet music, if you listen to it, it will be like this throughout the entire piece. Now, how is the melody embellished? How is the melody a little more than just a simple melody? Well, Chopin does something very interesting where he doubles the melody. He doubles it an octave lower. That doesn't matter. The point is you hear the melody not just up here, not just there, but also down here. And when you combine them together, it's so interesting because you hear the same melody in two different places. And not just that, rhythmically, the piece becomes so agitated because the lower melody starts kind of like in the middle of that chord. So let me play just the regular melody, and you'll notice it sounds very normal, it just sounds very normal. But look where look where Chopin puts that other melody, the melody that's lower. Let me do that one more time. I'm gonna try to force myself to not also play the melody up high. You see, it starts so quickly but a little offbeat, and it gives us this agitated feeling, it's very agitated. I don't know what other adjectives, I need to think of other adjectives to come up with it. Almost loopy, like in the next Bach episode we're gonna show with the D minor Prelude. This kind of ungrounded feeling like we're kind of falling apart. Do you hear both the melodies now? Very interesting. So from something so basic, kind of went too high for my voice. It becomes so much richer once you have these wider chords, once you're doubling that melody in this funky rhythmical way, an octave lower. Very, very cool. To finish this, if I were to describe this piece in words, describe the sheet music in words, there is another element in there which is much less important. That's why it's not even very useful to talk about it in words. What we really cue into is this gorgeous bass, these gorgeous chords with the pedal, and then the way the melody is a little off kilter because it's doubled. This other element, I'll just play it for you so maybe you can hear it. It's basically it's another way of showing the chord. So what this together with the left hand, well, not even together. It spells out the same chord as the left hand. So if my left hand is doing this chord, that little inner voice would do same chord. It's just a way of making the sound a little fuller. Yeah, making it a little fuller. And again, with the pedal down, we'll talk about the pedal and Chopin more in other episodes. It just makes it sound so much richer. It's foreshadowing Chopin pedal like this, okay? Anton Rubinstein said that the pedal is the soul of the piano. He's partly right. I mean, I understand why he said it. It's more complicated than that, but the pedal, the right pedal here, makes it sound so much richer. Okay, that is basically it for the piece. That's the shtick of it. Chords and melody, harmony and melody, very beautiful, pretty basic harmony, but he does some cool things with it. Let's talk about how to practice the piece, okay? And we'll use this time to also talk about the pedal a little bit. Ground yourself with this left hand. What you're doing here, this should be your bass. You need to be able to make this sound very nice. Try it without the pedal first, okay? Because they are wide chords, there is a technique here which I'm not gonna get too much into, and this is really something you gotta work on quite a lot. With a teacher helps a lot. Every time you need to tie together notes that are pretty far apart. There's like a rocking sensation that you're doing. Here, let me exaggerate it. And now let me not exaggerate so much. This is a pretty good exercise to do for all of the chords in the left hand. Notice how my hand is I'm not keeping it static. I mean, I do have a pretty wide hand span, so I could kind of just keep my hand still as I play these notes. Not in this chord, but in any case, you really shouldn't do that. Having your hand rock with like this pivot point in the middle, I mean, even this would be a pretty good exercise, rocking your hand like this, to feel what it's like to reach to this low note with your pinky, this high note with your thumb, while you're holding down this note in the middle, either with your third finger or second finger. That's more up to you and the individual differences in every pianist's hands. So that's the first thing you gotta do, is you really gotta make this, be able to play these chords very beautifully. once you're able to play these broken chords and make them sound nice, the next thing you gotta do, again, we're still talking about just making the left hand, grounding the piece with this left hand, with the chords in the left hand, is being able to add the pedal to it and not, I mean, here, look, here's a big secret about the pedal. I mean, there's a lot of secrets about the pedal, and we'll be talking about a lot of them, but knowing how to lift the pedal, how to clear it, is just as important as pushing it down. I mean, pushing the pedal down is not that hard. But being able to clear it and having that control. Notice how, for example, I can clear the pedal slowly and there's still a bit of that sound in there. Now I've fully released the pedal, but because I did it gradually, the sound kind of came apart in a slower way, more interesting way. So how you lift the pedal is very important. It will be very important in the left hand. It'll be even more important once we start adding the right hand melody. But I would urge you to practice like this. Practice putting these broken chords under the pedal, but releasing it a little slowly. And not just that, practice, you gotta work on, you have to be conscientious of how holding the pedal down changes the sound, especially in these big bassy notes down here. If I don't use the pedal and I'm playing these broken chords, I can kind of lean into them a little bit more. But once the pedal is down, I'm more conscientious about how I'm playing every note so that they sound together more harmoniously. There's not much to say here other than just pay attention to your ears. Very important to be a good listener. Put the pedal down and play these chords with the pedal down and make them sound good to you. Once you have the bass down, the left hand down, we can now start adding in elements of the right hand. As I mentioned in the first part of this episode, there are really three elements in the right hand. There's this inner voice, this harmony. Then there's the main melody. And then there's the lower melody. I would suggest, first of all, adding in, well, first of all, you need to practice all three of them separately. So let's go them piece by piece. The easiest one to add in together with the left hand would be that inner voice, that harmony. Because you don't really need to make it ring out. You're just playing little arpeggios. Be careful about the pedal. Make sure if you do have two chords that bleed in together, make sure they don't bleed in too much. I mean, if you hold onto the pedal and you're not clearing it very well, the sound is muddy. Oof, I needed to clear it way much more then. So the name of the game here is use your ear and work on, clearing the pedal. Making sure you clear the pedal so that the sound doesn't get too muddy. Now, the next thing I would suggest adding in would be the upper melody. Here, the pedal I think is the most important thing you got to work on, because the melody I think sounds a bit too, it's a little too abrupt if I clear the pedal very quickly. I'm exaggerating, but it's an idea. But if I let that melody note kind of bleed into the next chord, kind of like the human voice does. Chopin said this, and almost everybody has said this. My teacher said this. Listen to singers. Singing is, look, I'll say something different. Singing and dancing are the first and the true main art forms. So listen to singing, okay? And notice how when we sing, we're not going to do something like bum bop, bum bop, bum bop. No, it's a little more doo doo, bum bum, bum bum, bum bum, ba ba. Do you see how that note in the melody kind of bleeds into the next chord? You got to try to do that as well, and the pedal helps quite a lot. Again, you can kind of half clear it, not clear it all the way, so then the sound is still there a little bit as you're starting to play the next chord. And now the middle voice, not the middle voice, the low melody, this is the hardest part, I think. It's hard because it has a tendency to dominate the other melody. This is the melody that I think we really want to hear. But if we start playing this low melody too loudly, it kind of dominates. So you need to be aware of that. However, it should still be fairly strong because it's the thing that rhythmically kind of throws us off key. I don't have this down very well, but you just, again, gotta listen and be careful about not letting that note be too overpowering. The other difficult thing with this low melody is, again, you're taking off, you're playing the second part of the melody, and then immediately after you finish that melody, you have to start the melody again. And it can have this kind of like seasick feeling if you're not careful about the dynamics, how soft and loud you're playing it. It can, at least the way that I play it, it can have a tendency to be and then it becomes a little too topsy-turvy, again, for me. So I'm realizing, especially as I say this, but even as I wrote the script, I don't have too much to say about this low melody, other than, again, you have to be a very, very good listener. Very important to be a listener as you play music. And just be aware of, especially the dynamics of this low melody so that it integrates well into the piece as a whole. Okay, the last thing to talk about practicing this piece, and it is a difficult part, and it's the part that I am not the best at, are the polyrhythms. There are a couple of sections here where the rhythm becomes even wilder because Chopin asks us to continue with the left hand, just the way it was written. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1. I can't count anymore. So while we keep continuing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these measures of 6 notes, the right hand, which used to rhythmically be very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We're always playing on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He then asks us to take this right hand, which used to have the span of 6 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and play it in 5. Basically, we have a 5 against 6 polyrhythm. So in the in the time that we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we need to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Making those line up is very difficult. I am not that great at polyrhythms. I'm working on it. I'm sure I'm going to get there. So I'm a little, I don't know how many tips. No, I can give you tips and I will talk about it. I love talking. But I mean, there are people out there that can do the 7 against 11 polyrhythm. It boggles my mind, really boggles my mind. So let me give you the 2 tips that I use through which hopefully I'm pretty sure I'll be able to really nail this down at some point. So first of all, I'm assuming you can do like a 2 against 3 basic polyrhythms. If you're not there yet, this will be too advanced. But 2s against 3s, very basic. Not only is it easy to feel, it's very easy analytically to realize that, okay, you've got your 3 notes, and the second note in the 2 is going to fall kind of like in the middle. If you look at it, like draw it out or think about it mathematically, it's pretty clear where it lands, okay? And as soon as you get 3s against 4s, I'm starting to do 3s against 4s a bit better, but that you can also do pretty analytically. You can use solfege for it. But 5 against 6 becomes pretty difficult. So one idea that I have for you, is the following. 5 against 6 is very hard. 5 against 2 is a lot easier. In the same way that 3 against 2 is pretty easy. 5 against 2 is kind of the same thing. You're taking your 5 notes, and right in the middle of that, you're playing the second note of your 2. Well, the 6 notes that you got to play in the left hand, well, you're playing only 3, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? You can split that in 2. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can play these 5 notes and play a 2 in the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you can do the 5 against 2, think that in the 2 in the left hand, instead of playing 2 notes, make them triplets. So instead of being 1, 2, 1, 2, you're doing 1, 2, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. So you're still only thinking about 5 against 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still 5 against 2, but those 2s make them triplets. Easier said than done. It's something that I've only recently started to work on, and I think it is a good way to help with it. So you're analytically very clear about where the 5 against 2 is happening, but then you're more going by feel, making those 2s triplets. Let me give you the other way of practicing this, which is much more analytical. But before that, I want to mention something that Adam Neely said, which is very important. You should not be winging rhythms. I mean, sure, even something like, I don't know, maybe if it's something like in Chopin, there's like a 11 against 6, something like that, or 9, or in here, a doom boom. That's a mess of notes. I don't know if you can analytically figure that out. Maybe you can. Maybe you should. But for the most part, except in extreme cases, I strongly urge you to not just wing it, okay? Try to at least understand at a logical level where these 5 against 6 line up, where they should line up. Ultimately, you will be going by feel when you're playing it, especially once you get wrapped up in the music. I mean, this happens with 3s against 2s. I know very analytically where this happens, But once I actually start playing, it's more of a feel. I'm not thinking mathematically or logically. It really just becomes more by feel. And I think you can do the same thing here. I think I'm just gonna link you the video where Adam Neely talks about the thing that you can do to try to figure out very mathematically, if you're playing a polyrhythm like 5 against 6, where do the 5 notes versus the 6 notes come up? When do they play together? When they're a little off kilter, etc. So if you do that, you'll be able to very mathematically know, okay, like the last part of this quintuplet has to come, you know, like 1 millisecond before the 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can be more aware analytically and mathematically where those things line up and practice it slowly, analytically, mathematically, the way you do your 3s against 2s. Bum, 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 bum. And really understand it very well and rigorously, and then go for more of a feel. Okay. I hope that helped. I don't know if that helped. But that is pretty much all I have to say about practicing the piece. Let's talk about how to learn it. Pretty easy. I'm worried about my SD card filling up. I think we're good. This is not a very hard piece to learn. It's another one of the pieces where just a bit of harmonic analysis will get you pretty much all the way there, okay? And the harmony here is quite straightforward. I mean, right from the beginning. Actually, 1 second. There's basically 3 parts. There's like an introduction, then there's the part that fritzes out, and then a short outro. Okay, let's take them part by part. The first part has one of the most basic chord progressions. We're in the key of C major. We start on C8, we go to a G7. Very simple, 1, 5, back to the 1. For all of the weirdness here, this is still just a C major. Always focus on what the left hand does and what that inner voice does, okay? If you look at that, this is very clearly a C major. This is very clearly a G7, that's your 5 chord, back to the 1 chord. Here, this is still just a 1 chord. I mean, sure, it's a C major 7, because we have this B, and in the root, in the bass, we do have an E, so it is an inversion, but it's still just a C major chord. But notice something, even though it's just another C major chord, notice how important voicing is, and rhythm, and everything besides just a harmony. If I were just to play this, I mean, that's whatever. Is just a C major chord followed by another variant of a C major chord, a C major 7. But as soon as I add these rhythms, add this inversion, add this melody, it's just a totally another feel. I was honestly, because I'm not that amazing at, I'm working on hearing harmonies much better. When I analyzed this harmonically and I noticed that this chord is just another C major, I was like, oh wow, I thought this was, I don't know, something very different, like an E minor or something. But no, it's a C major 7, but because it's a major 7 with this B, because I've got this E in the bass, it gives it such an interesting feel. Okay, C major, the 5 chord, back to the 1 chord, C major 7, and now we're going to resolve to C major with a very standard progression. What is this? This is your 4 chord. This is an F major 7. Normally we would see the 5 chord to the 1, right? 4, 5, 1. But in between the 4 and the 5, Chopin throws in this D7. This is pretty standard stuff. This D7 chord is itself the 5, the dominant of G major. So in the same way that G major wants to resolve to C major. D major wants to resolve to G major. So we've got a D7 chord, which goes to the G chord, which goes to the C chord. So it's basically a progression of resolutions of 5-1, 5-1. You might hear that this D7 is the 5 of 5, right? The dominant of the dominant. So our 5 chord in the key of C major would be this G. So the 5 of 5 would be the 5 of G major. The 5 of G is D. Not just that, but the bass is pretty straightforward as well. From this F chord, the bass just moves up to an F sharp, that F sharp which makes it a D7. And then the bass moves up again just a half step to the G. So we're on the 5 chord, on the G7. I can't help but tell you that I noticed this progression as well in a song called Daisy, which is I saw a video on YouTube of the first, I think it claimed it was the first computer-generated voice, and it sang this song. Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of ooh. That funky chord was the D, otherwise it was the D7. C major to the F, back to the 1. Now we go to G, the 5 chord, to the 1, 5 of 5. What does the 5 of 5 do? It wants to go to the 5 naturally, which resolves back to the 1. Okay, that was the first section. The next section is the one that fritzes out, but again, it's not that hard if you just focus on what the left hand does. We've got, again, C, G, C, C7, and then I know we have the C sharp here, which is kind of odd, but ignore that C sharp from the melody and look at where it resolves, okay? It just wants to move up 1/2 step, and what we've landed at here is an F chord. This is our 4 chord, right? It's an F major. There is a D in here, which makes it, I guess it would make it an F6. But think of it's just your 4 chord, okay? Next, this is your 1 chord. This is a C7. Look at the left hand. This makes a C7. Ignore this D sharp over here. The D sharp is just a leading tone that wants to move here. Wants to move up 1/2 step. In the same way it did here, it does it again here. The left hand continues to move up. What is this? Again, this is just your F chord. This is just a 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Ignore this D sharp. It's just a leading tone that wants to move to E. Look at this chord very clearly. This is just a C. And then it starts fritzing out a little bit more. Again, a 4 chord. This is G, your 5 chord. This is C. It's a C6 because we have an A in here. But it's still just a C chord. Another 5 chord. So let's recapitulate. It's just a bunch of C majors, F majors, and G majors. Just a bunch of 1, 4, 5s, okay? This is an F. This is a C. This is an F. This is a C. This is an F. This is a G. This is a C. This is a G. And the G naturally wants to go to C major. And now we have a funky chord. This is a diminished chord. This is a diminished 7th. Which resolves to to the C. Again, we have just, look at the left hand, this is just a C chord. 5, that's your G major, to the 1. So it is a whole bunch of chords, but they're all just 1, 4, 5, C's, F's, and G's. For all of the wonkiness that goes on here is basically just that, with this one exception of this beautiful diminished chord, which I think sounds very nice because it was, I'm actually not sure analytically, I can't explain why this sounds so nice, but it just does. I think it because there's so many half steps that take it from here to the C. Do you see how this F sharp and this D sharp move up here to make a C chord? Maybe that's why. And then the outro is quite simple. This is a C. This is kind of like a 2 chord or an F chord. If you look at it like this, or I guess a 5, I'm really not sure analytically what this is, especially because the left hand is going to hold on like a pedal point to this C and this G, and it's only going to change this E to this F. You see? And then it moves up to G. So here I'm not really harmonically analyzing this. I just know that my left hand is going to play these 2 notes, and it's going to play an E, then an F, E, F, G. And while this happens, I've memorized these 2 little patterns. I've got my C here, and then this G over here. And then an F, which immediately resolves to a C. Look at this, that's an F, and when I go here, it's a C. I think this is called a plagal cadence, the 1-4. You hear it in church music a lot, I believe. And we resolve to C. So that's it for the piece. I hope you enjoyed this. Let's play it. I'm really running out of SD space. All right, we're good. Somehow it's also 45 minutes. I don't know why these are so so long. Okay. That was super agitated. Let me play that one more time in a slightly different way. Thanks for watching.